Good morning. So now I'm going to continue on and reading the Elementary Catechism on the Constitution to kind of give a little bit of a recap, if you will, so far. So the Elementary Catechism on the Constitution was written back in 1825 to 1828 by a Presbyterian minister. So in the Presbyterian Church, they use catechism as well as like Martin Luther made catechism, John Calvin made catechisms, the Roman Catholic Church has catechisms. Catechism is basically a series of questions and answers to teach. In the case of religion, it teaches the basics of religion to kids as well as new believers. So this Presbyterian minister took that same idea and that same concept and same teaching tool and applied it to helping the elementary school kids as well as like most likely fourth and fifth graders to be able to understand what the Constitution is talking about and the concept of government that we have. So in the previous video, I'd already started reading, and I ended to a certain point. So what I'm going to do is kind of overlap a little bit and then pick up from there and move on forward. So I'm going to start with question. It doesn't have a number of questions as far as like in case in point in the Westminster Catechism, they have question 1, question 2, and all of that. In this, it does not have that. It's just question, answer, question, answer. Okay. So I'm going to start with, it's probably a safe place to start, is question, why is the 4th of July kept with such public rejoicing through all parts of the United States? Answer, because on the 4th of July, 1776, the colonies first declared themselves free and independent. From that day, the independence of the country is reckoned in all our public proceedings, though it was not acknowledged by Great Britain till 1783. Question, what was the change produced by the Revolution? Answer, the different colonies became each a free state, having power to govern itself in any way it should think proper. Question, had not one state any power over the other? Answer, none at all, and the several states might have remained entirely distinct countries as much as France and Spain. Question, did they? Answer, no. Having been led to unite together to help each other in the war, they soon began to find that it would be better for each of them that they should all continue united in its further persecution. Farther prosecution, and accordingly they entered into an agreement which was called a confederation, in which they made some laws which they all agreed to obey. But after their independence was obtained, finding the defects of this plan, they called a convention in which they laid a complete plan for uniting all the states under one general government. This plan is called the Federal Constitution. On this great plan or constitution, the safety and happiness of the United States does under Almighty God mainly depend. All our laws are made by its direction or authority. Whoever goes contrary to it injures and betrays his country, injures you, injures me, betrays us all, and is deserving of heaviest punishment. Whoever, on the contrary, loves and keeps it sacred is his country's friend, secure his own safety, and furthers the happiness of all around him. Let every American learn from his earliest years to love, cherish, and obey the Constitution. Without this, he can neither be a great or a good citizen. Without this, his name will never be engraved with honor in the pages of our history, nor transmitted like that of Washington with praises and blessings to a late posterity. So I'm going to this whole concept of encouraging every American to read the Constitution. The way that tyrannical government can rule, especially in the United States, is for the American people to be ignorant of what the Constitution says. The Constitution is basically a document that they forged together that tells the government what they can and cannot do. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, is basically telling the government this is the rights of the people, you cannot violate them. And the only way that anyone in the government can violate these constitutional rights is if every American remains completely ignorant on what it says. So, according to the writer of the Catechism, he says, "Let every American learn from his earliest years to love, cherish, and obey the Constitution. Without this, he can neither be a great or a good citizen. Without this, his name will never be engraved with honor in the pages of our history, nor transmitted like that of Washington with praises and blessings to a late posterity." Back in the 1800s, as well as during the American Revolution, your honor and prestige was something they sought for. Okay, they wanted their names to be written down in history. So what he's saying is like, in order for that to happen, you have to have a great love for your country. So the true betrayers of our countries are those who seek to injure or betray whoever goes contrary to the Constitution, basically, injures and betrays his country, injures you, injures me, betrays us all, and is deserving of the heaviest of punishment, which there is consequences for those who violate, who go against the Constitution. I'll go get off my pedestal or step stool and go on and continue reading. Question: you say that in a republic, the laws are made by certain people whom the people chose for that purpose. Who makes the laws in our republic? Answer: the laws which concerns only one of the states are made by persons chosen by the people of that state, and who then meet and are called the legislature, the general assembly, or the general court of that particular state. Those, for instance, who make laws which concern only the state of New York are called the legislature of the state of New York. Those who make laws which concern only the state of Massachusetts are called the general court of Massachusetts. But laws which concern all the states or more states than one are made by the Congress of the United States. Question: but if the Congress itself should make a law which is contrary to the Constitution, must the people obey it? Answer: no. Question: who is to determine whether any law is contrary to the Constitution or know the people themselves? Answer: no. But certain persons whom they have appointed, called judges of the Supreme Court of the United States. Question: do the members of the Congress of the United States all meet together in one assembly when they make the laws? Answer: no. They meet in two separate assemblies, one of which is called the Senate, and the other is called the House of Representatives. Question: who chooses the persons who shall be members of the House of the Representatives? Answer: the people of all the different states, because the law of Congress concerns all the states and must be obeyed by all the people of this republic. Question: have boys a right to choose them? Answer: no. Boys are too young. Question: are any other persons unfit? Answer: yes. Question: how is it determined who may or may not choose them? Answer: by the laws of each state, Whoever is allowed to choose the members of the legislatures of any state is also allowed by the Constitution to choose members of the House of Representatives of the United States. Some states allow one class of persons to choose, and other states allow a different class. Each state acts as it thinks best. This choice is called an election. Question: how is it conducted? Answer: on a day fixed beforehand and publicly known, the people who are to choose and who are called voters meet at certain places called the polls. Here persons sit called inspectors who have certain boxes called ballot boxes before them, and each person who votes puts into a hole in the top of these boxes a piece of paper with the names of the persons whom he chose written or printed on it. These pieces of paper are afterwards examined and counted by the inspectors, who keep a written record of the names voted for and the number of votes given by the person for each vote. The persons having the greatest number of votes are chosen. There are some slight differences in the mode of holding elections in the different states, but it is the same in every important particular. Question: are there times, places, and manners of holding these elections fixed by Congress? Answer: no, they have thus far been left to be regulated by each state for itself, but Congress may fix it if it thinks fit. Spoiler alert, we have a fixed date, which is called Election Day in November. It's usually the first Monday, I think, or it's the first Tuesday in November. I could be wrong. It could be a specific date. But anyways, also, we no longer do, as far as like you have to handwrite the person who you're voting for. They have it already printed out. All you got to do is bubble it in, and they use kind of like a Scantron type thing where you bubble who you're voting for, and then you put it into the ballot boxes, and the ballot box, a computer basically automatically tracks who voted for who based upon which one you scribbled on. It's not scribbled on, which bubble next to which person's name you voted for. So also it does give you an option to write in if you want to add someone to the ballot at the whether that person gets voted for, probably not. But if a sufficient amount of people write the same name, that's the majority, then that person would win the election, technically. But I don't know how that works out. But anyways, theoretically, they probably would win the election. But I think there's a whole system of things, like paperwork and stuff, they're supposed to put into when you put onto the ballot in the first place. But anyways, that's kind of, I'm merely just telling you in the sense that they're talking about how the ballots and the elections were done back in the 1800s. I'm telling you how it's done now, and how things have changed. But again, this catechism was done back in the 1820s. So obviously there's going to be things different in how we do things now versus how things were done then. Technology is advanced, much more advanced than how it was back then. So he's simply telling you how things were done then. I'm just telling you how things were done now. Okay? Carrying right along. Question: suppose a dispute should arise concerning an election, and one person shall declare that he had been fairly chosen, while other denies it, and insists that he himself had been chosen. Who has the power to settle the dispute? Answer: a dispute between persons who claims a seat in the House of Representatives can be determined only by the House of Representatives. A dispute between persons claiming a seat in the Senate can be settled by the Senate only. Such dispute frequently arise. Nowadays, not as much, because again, we have technology that it's clear as day. It much simplifies the process. Question: when a person is chosen to be a member of the House of Representatives, how long does he continue so? Answer: for 2 years. When the 2 years have expired, may he be chosen again? Answer: yes. Question: suppose he dies before the time is out. Answer: another is chosen in his stead for the rest of the time. Question: how old must a person be before he can be chosen a member of the House of Representatives? Answer: 25 years old. Question: may a person be chosen who has come into the United States and who is subject of some other country, that means who is bound to obey the laws of some other countries? Answer: no. Any person to be chosen a member of the House of Representatives must either have been born in the United States or must have been naturalized 7 years before he is chosen. Meaning, naturalized means if he wasn't born in the United States, he has to become a citizen of the United States and been a citizen for 7 years. Whether they actually do that now, I don't know. But that's what the Constitution is basically saying they must do. So I would think they do, out of respect to the Constitution. Question: naturalized. What does that mean? I just told you, but I'm going to read what he says. Answer: a person who was born in another country and comes to live in this is not owned as a citizen of the United States till he has lived among us a certain time, and then, after knowing something of our laws and customs, has taken a solemn oath to obey the government. He is then admitted as a citizen of our republic. This is called his naturalization. And once naturalized, he is allowed to choose the rulers and do all other things the same as if he had been born among us. Basically, once you become a citizen of the United States, you have the right to vote for people, you're allowed to vote in elections. Whereas if you're not a legal citizen, you do not have the right to vote. There's some that wish that they could, but no. The Constitution is clear. You have to be a citizen to be under the Constitution. If you're not a citizen, you're not under the Constitution. So the same rights and protection that the Constitution grants to citizens does not grant to those who are not legal citizens. So there's systems as far as with immigration. I'm not getting into that. I'm just going to follow what this says. But I'm just explaining in the sense that in order to vote, in order to be in office, at least on a federal level, now some states may have done away with it to some degree. I would hope not. But anyways, you have to be a legal citizen of the United States for at least 7 years before he can be chosen, before he can run for office. He has to be a legal citizen of the United States for at least 7 years before he can run for office on a federal level, according to the Constitution. Okay? Question: may the people of one state choose a person who is an inhabitant of another state to be a member of the House of Representatives? Answer: no. He must live in the state where he is chosen. Basically, someone who lives in Massachusetts can't be a representative of someone from New York. Someone who lives in California cannot be a representative of someone in the state of Kentucky. Common sense would dictate, if you are wanting to send a representative to Washington, D.C., you would want them to live in your state, that knows the quality of what's going on in your state, that is up to date on current events in your state. Otherwise, if you choose a representative from California to represent Kentucky, the way things are done in California are not the same way that things are done in Kentucky. So whoever someone chose from California for Kentucky is going to vote on policies that it benefits California more than it does Kentucky. So if you put someone in that's from Kentucky that loves their state, they're going to fight for equality, as far as they're going to fight hard for their state, for what their state needs, as well as for the federal, on a federal level. There's got to be a balance. So the point is that a representative is going to represent best the place where he lives. So if he lives in California, he's going to best represent California and poorly represent Kentucky. I'm just using different states as a methodology to help you understand. Okay, it's common sense. You would think, but in today's day and age, you never know. So I'm just making sure it's clear. Okay. Let's live and stay where it shows. Question: how many persons may be chosen by each state as members of the House of Representatives? Answer: the number of representatives of any state is a proportion to the number of people in that state. At present, every 4,000 people send one representative, but this has been or may be altered with the increase of the number of people. Question: some of the states have large number of slaves living in them, and others have many Indians. Are these counted in making up the 40,000? No. Answer: no. 3/5 of the number of slaves is allowed. That is, every 5 slaves are counted as if they were 3 free persons. Those Indians who pay taxes, that is, who pay money for the expenses of governing and defending us, are counted. Those who do not pay taxes are not counted. So this part actually is irrelevant, meaning it no longer applies. Due to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment of the Constitution after the Civil War, where slavery was abolished, this whole concept, the 3/5, does not matter, because each African American is a person. It's a free person, therefore they each are represented equally. Now, I don't agree with this part. Honestly, they did that. This part was done more of a compromise between the North and the South states when the Constitution was being formed. It is kind of it's kind of odd, granted, I think it's probably more of a later 1800s, not later 1800s, but more like pre-Civil War era, where slaves were treated more like property than they were people. So it was kind of weird how they would argue that they were people when it suited them, as far as it bettered their population growth to give them more representatives in the House of Representatives. But yet, in other times, they were treated like they were property. So that kind of, to me, doesn't make sense. They're either property or they're people. Make up your mind. You can't have it both ways. So slavery was a very complicated issue. While we know now that they knew now then too, but it was kind of a way of life for them, I guess. I don't know. I'm not trying to excuse them for having slavery, but we all know that trying to act like you own someone else is morally wrong. And so I'm only bringing this up in the sense because it was brought up. But basically, in essence of the Constitution, this part is no longer irrelevant to the Constitution because of the 13th and 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Okay, so question: how is it known what number of people each state contains? Certain persons are appointed to count the people and take a written list of them. Such as accounting is called a census, and it takes place once in every 10 years. In the year 1790, the United States contained 3,929,326. In 1800, 5,309,758. In 1810, 7,239,903. And in 1820, 9,600,000 138,166. Question. When the members of the House of Representatives meet to make the laws, are they all equal, or does only one preside over them? Answer. They choose one of their own numbers whose duty it is to preside over them while they are met to do business, and to see that they proceed in a regular and orderly manner in doing their public duty. He is called their Speaker, or Speaker of the House. They also choose a person who is not one of their own to keep a written account from day to day of all that is done by them while assembled. That written account is called a journal of the House of Representatives, and the person who keeps it is called the Clerk of the House. They also choose another person who is called their Sergeant at Arms, and who may, when so ordered by the House, seize any member who disobey the rules or is charged by the House with any crime, and imprison him. They also choose another person as their doorkeepers, who is to take care that no person is admitted into the hall where the representatives are sitting, but such as are permitted by law. These several persons, thus chosen, are called the officers of the House of Representatives, and remain in office 2 years. I'm not sure how that applies today. They might have it like customary. But most of the protection of the congressman is done by Homeland Security, whose main job it is to keep the president safe, the Congress safe, the cabinet, and the presidential cabinet, the vice president, all of Congress and the Supreme Court. It's their job to keep them safe. It's basically like a private security force, if you will. That's their job. Most of them are made up of veterans who actually fought in wars and whatnot, who were very well trained to keep the leaders safe. So I don't know how that functions now. Okay. Question. Who chooses the members of the Senate of the United States? Answer. The legislator of each state chooses the Senate for that state. Question. How many senators may there be? Answer. 2 from each state. I think nowadays we vote for senators. I think. I could be wrong. Question. When a citizen is chosen by the legislator of his own state to be a member of the Senate of the United States. Oh, so the state legislative chooses. Okay. Which again, like I said, nowadays I think we do vote for them as well. I'd have to look into the amendments that might be, but at that time, that's how it was. Anyways. How long does he continue such? For 6 years, if he dies before the expiration of that time, or resigns his office, that is, if he declares it to be his wish not to be a senator any longer, another is appointed in his place. Are all the senators chosen at the same time as members of the House of Representatives are? Answer, no. Only 1/3 are chosen at a time. 2 years afterwards, another third is chosen, and 2 years after that, another third, so that every 2 years, 1/3 part of the senators go out of office. But the same persons may again be chosen if the legislators who chose them before wish to send them again. If not, they send others in their place. How old must a person be before he can be chosen as Senator of the United States? Answer, 30. Question, can he be chosen if he has not been born in the United States? Answer, yes, if he had become a citizen by being naturalized and has been a citizen for 9 years. Question, can a senator of one state be chosen by the legislators of another state? Again, this goes back to that House of Representatives. It's better for someone to be chosen from their own state to best represent that state? Answer, no. The legislators of each state must choose its own senators from persons residing in its own bounds. Meaning, state legislators of New York cannot appoint a senator for Massachusetts, or a senator from Florida cannot choose a senator for California, even though that would be whatever. I'm gonna leave that alone. Again, back to the same concept I pointed out with the House of Representatives. It makes sense for the representatives or senator to be chosen from the very state of which they are expected to represent. Someone from California is not going to represent Kentucky very well. Someone from California actually isn't going to represent Florida very well, or Texas. If you know anything about what's going on with California and Texas, you know that Texas is a very Republican state, and California is a very Democratic state, in the sense that as far as political parties, they're like Texas predominantly Republican. So they usually vote Republican, whereas California is predominantly Democrat state. So obviously, California, picking someone from California to represent Texas isn't going to represent Texas very well, especially when they're both on two different ideology as well as political party difference. They're major contracts difference between California and Texas. So it's unwise for California to pick a representative or senator to represent Texas. It's not going to work. That would be no. That's a heck no on that one. Texans wouldn't like take that line down. And the same concept in reverse. California isn't going to want Texas to send a representative or senator to represent California from Texas. They're not going to do that. That's not going to be right. So it's common sense, and it's the right thing to do for each state to pick their own representatives and their own senators from their state, because they're the only ones that's going to be able to best represent that state on a federal level. Okay? Question: does the Senate choose a speaker as the House of Representatives does? Answer: no. The person who is chosen by the people to be Vice President of the United States is made by the Constitution, President of the Senate. His duties are like those of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, except that he is not obligated to keep order in debate. Their other officers are the same in all respects as those of the House of Representatives, and are chosen by the senators in the same manner. Question: do senators ever sit as judges? Answer: yes. If any civil officers of the United States that is not an officer of the Army is guilty of a violation of his public duty, he is accused or charged by the House of Representatives and tried by the Senate. Such an accusation is called an impeachment. Questions: do the senators... I just read that. Question: what do you mean by he being tried by the Senate? Answer: the senators take a solemn oath that they will carefully attend to the proof that should be brought before them, and according to that proof, declare the accused person innocent or guilty, as the case may be. The House of Representatives appoint some of their own members to lay the proof before the Senate, and afterwards the accused person lays before them the proof that the proofs in his defense, which both have been heard. When both have been heard, the members of the Senate vote. That is, each one declares his opinion. And if 2/3 of all the senators who are present declares the accused person to be guilty, he is adjourned guilty. If not, he is declared not guilty. Question: cannot the Senate in like manner impeach, that is, solemnly charge an officer before the House of Representatives? Answer: no. None can bring an impeachment but the House of Representatives, and none can try an impeachment but the Senate. Question. What is the consequence if the Senate declares an officer of the United States to be guilty? Answer. He is to be turned out of office and prevented from ever holding any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States government. Question. May he be further punished? Answer. Not by the Senate. He may afterwards be tried before a court of law and punished in the same manner as any other criminal for offenses against the law. Question. May ever the President of the United States be thus impeached and punished? Answer. Yes, in this free and happy country, no man is so great as to be above the law. The laws are supreme to them all persons, from the President of the United States to the poorest and meanest beggar, must alike submit. This is our glory. Let every youthful American exult that he has no master but the law. Let him mark the man who would change this happy state of things as the enemy of his country. And above all, let him remember that as soon as he himself breaks the law, he becomes himself that enemy. Whoever violates the law helps to weaken its force, and as far as he disobeys, does what in him lies to destroy it. But he who honors and obeys the law strengthens the law, and thereby helps to preserve the freedom and happiness of his country. In some government it is held that the king can do no wrong. Here we know no king but the law, no monarch but the Constitution. We hold that every man may do wrong, that the higher he is in office, the more reason there is that he be obliged to answer for his conduct, and that as a great officer, if treacherous, is a great criminal, as he ought to be made to suffer a great and exemplary punishment. Question. How often does Congress meet? Answer. It must meet once, at least in every year, but may meet oftener if necessary. Meaning they're required to meet at least once a year. I can't remember how long that session is supposed to last, I guess until they get everything done for that session. However, they can call special sessions if there's things that needs to be done. I think the President of the United States has the right to call special session, but I'm not sure on how that works. It might tell us later on. Okay. Question. Is any date fixed for its meetings? Question. Yes. The first Monday in December, but it has power to alter that to some other fixed day. When Congress ceases to meet, it is said to adjourn. Question. Suppose all the members of the Senate or all the members of the House of Representatives do not attend a meeting. Can those who do attend, make laws without them? Answer. If more than one half are present, they are in most cases power to do whatever the whole number could have done. More than one half are called a majority, less than one half are called a minority. As many as are necessary to do business are called a quorum. So basically, you have to have more than half of Congress. The House of Representatives, in order to function, has to have more than half of their representatives to hold a quorum to be able to do business. Currently in Texas, a lot of Democrat representatives in Texas fled the state so that weren't able to do quorum, so they weren't able to do business. They did that more out of protest against gerrymandering or the redistricting maps to more accommodate Republicans. They're doing that in protest because it's a whole thing. And so the irony is they ran to states that are heavily gerrymandered, or they changed the maps, the district maps, to better suit the Democrats. And so they're pissed at Republicans for seeking to change the map to give the Republicans a better foothold, but yet they're running to states that are guilty of doing the same thing, but in reverse. That's kind of stupid. That's kind of hypocrisy. And furthermore, running away and fleeing the state just so that the state legislature cannot have quorum is a very cowardly thing to do, and it is basically you're refusing to do your job. In any other job field, if you refuse to show up or you leave without probable cause, they could see that as job abandonment and you could get fired. And so some of the Republican leadership in Texas currently are looking to do that, to fire these Democrat representatives who fled the state to break quorum, because they did violate the law. Okay, you have a job to do. Stop being a baby. Your people deserve better. Your people deserve that you were sent to represent. When you leave and to not do quorum, you're basically causing that the people that are in your district does not have a voice. It becomes a system to where they don't have any representation because you fled the state, because you refuse to represent them. So it is a very cowardly move, and it is very disrespectful for the people who elected you into office. So that's all I'm going to say on that, which they're currently working on. There's a lot of consequences to what they did that they're going to have to answer to, and they may not enjoy it when they get done. Call the quorum. Question: suppose less than one half should attend. Can they do nothing? Answer: yes, they have power to send for the others and compel them to attend. If they do not choose to do this, they have the power to adjourn till the next day. That is, they may separate after meeting to meet up the next day, and so they may continue to do till a quorum shall be present to do business. Basically, Texas lawmakers, because of the social situation of them fleeing the state, trying to prevent them from making quorum, is doing exactly that. They're calling for it every day until they get everybody in so they can have quorum, so that they can get work done, because there's more stuff beyond this redistricting that they need to do. Case in point, Texas had major flooding, and they need to pass laws to help them, and they can't help them without these laws being passed. And so the Democrats that's supposed to be for the people are, abandoning the people. So, you're full of crap. I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay. Question: are there any fixed rules for doing business in Congress? Answer: certainly. Everything is done by settled rules called rules of order. Question: who settles what these rules shall be? Answer: the rules for the Senate are made by the Senate. The rules for the House of Representatives are made by the House of Representatives. Each house has power to alter its own rules of order or to suspend them. That is to say, a particular rule may be disobeyed for a certain time, after which it is again enforced. Question: suppose a member refuses to attend or behaves when he does attend in a disorderly manner. He may be punished in any way the other member thinks proper. Case in point, okay, here we have that. This isn't on a state level, but this is talking about a federal level. So the federal has the same concept. So the Constitution, I can't remember it's not the last article, but it's close to it as far as of the Constitution, that talks about the state has a right to form a republic style government, which insinuates that the federal government in the Constitution, it's basically saying that the federal government is a republic style government, and it giving the states the rights to make the same kind of government. So in which they did. The Kentucky state government is literally built the same way as federal. And actually, the Kentucky state Capitol building is built with all three branches in one building. So on the first floor, you have the executive, the second, you have the legislative, and the third, you have the Supreme Court. It could be, I've been there once. So, and it's pretty cool. I love that kind of, where in like DC, you have the Capitol building, that's where Congress meets. You have the White House where the president lives and does business. And then you have the Supreme Court building. And there's three separate within Washington, D.C. So in Kentucky, as far as on a state level, you have those three branches of government stacked on top of each other in the same building. It's pretty cool. I think it's cool. But they built it purposely with that in mind. Okay. So suppose a member refuses to attend or behaves when he does attend in a disorderly manner. Answer: he may be punished in any way the other members think proper. So, in the case of Texas situation where they fled the state, the remaining has the right to punish them accordingly, in which they are actually doing that. May he even be expelled from the house that is turned out of it? Answer: yes, but not unless 2/3 of all the members think he deserves it. So basically, 2/3 of Texas, if they built it, their constitution matches ours in this aspect. 2/3 of the state senate or state representative, I can't remember which it could be, I don't know, has to vote yes, they need to be expelled. But then again, their laws may operate slightly different than the federal level. So this is talking about the federal constitution. While most of state constitution kind of mirrors the federal constitution as per quam by the constitution, they may have laws that differ in how they do it. But they deserve it. Question: you said that the clerk of the House of Representatives keeps a written journal of all that is done in the House. Is a journal kept in like manner by the Secretary of the State? Answer: yes. Are these journals published, that is, printed and sold? Answer: yes, excepting such parts as either House of Congress may think proper to keep secret for a time, when the public good requires it. Question: do Congress ever sit in secret? Answer: yes, whenever they are engaged in business which it will be better for the public good to keep secret for a time. They close their doors. At other times they sit in public, and everybody who can get into the gallery may see and hear all that is done. Question: does the journal show how each member voted in each case that came to be considered? Answer: no, but if 1/5 of the member present, when any measure is proposed, require that the names of those who voted for or against it be put down in the journal, it must be done. Question: after Congress has met, may either house adjourn, that is, cease to meet, for more than 3 days at a time without the consent of the other house? Answer: no. Question: do the two houses, that is, the Senate and House of Representatives, meet in the same building? Answer: yes. Question: may either house remove to any other place? Answer: no, not unless the other house removes too. So basically, Congress has to meet in the same building. Either House of Representatives and the House of the Senate, both of them have to meet in the same building, which is why we have a Capitol building for them to meet. Question: do members of Congress receive anything for doing the business of the public? Answer: the chief and best reward is the honor of serving their country, but as many of them cannot afford to leave their own business so often and so long without having the loss in some measure made up to them, the Constitution says they shall be allowed a compensation to be asserted by the law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. Question. Who fixed the rate of compensation, that is, how much the members shall have? Answer. It is fixed by Congress. Question. Ought they be allowed to fix their own wages? Answer. It cannot be avoided. The rate must be fixed by law, and there is none who have the power to make law for this country but the Congress alone. Question. May members of the Congress be arrested, that is, seized by a sheriff or constable for debts they owe, while they are attending to their public duty? Answer. Their duty is of so much value to us all that the Constitution may not allow them to be arrested while going and returning from their home to the place where Congress meets, nor while they are attending there, except in 3 cases. Question. What are these? Answer. If they have been found guilty of treason, felony, or breach of the peace. Question. When is a person guilty of treason? Answer. When he makes war against the United States, that is, when he endeavors by force to overturn or to resist the government, or when he helps or comforts others who are making war against them. But this must be proved by at least 2 witnesses who have both seen him do some of the acts of treason. The crime is punished in any way Congress thinks fit, and they have determined that it shall be punished by death. Question. If members of Congress, while engaged in debate, that is, arguing about any law that is proposed to be made, shall say anything offensive to another member, may he be sued for it by the others in a court of law? Answer. No, lest this should destroy the freedom of debate and make members afraid of speaking their thoughts with honesty and plainness in matters for the public good. A member cannot be called to account in other place for anything he says upon the floor of Congress. It's that whole First Amendment tricky thing of the First Amendment freedom of speech. So, he can say whatever he wants freely, with honesty and plainness in matters of for the public good. So whether you agree with what he says or not, he is free to say whatever he wants. And here's the thing, and I'm going to be a kicker on this one. If you fight for your own personal freedom of speech, I have a right to say what I want, then everybody else also has the same right. And so when you go to censor, meaning as to say, you can't say that. They can say it. You can disagree with what they said. You can just simply say, I disagree with what you just said. And I don't want to hear what you have to say. But you can't say that they're not allowed to say it when you disagree, even though you disagree with it. They could be completely wrong. The facts can show that they're completely wrong. But it's still their freedom of speech to say it. They can still say whatever they believe. That's our constitutional right. Okay? So if we, as everyday citizens, has the right of freedom of speech, so does Congress. So does the President of the United States. So does the Supreme Court, for that matter. They all have the right of freedom of speech. And you cannot censor them and say you can't say that, or that is taboo, or that's not this whole political correctness crap. You can't do that. That is illegal by the Constitution. They have freedom of speech just like you do. You cannot rob them of that right. So, question. May members of Congress be appointed to any civil office under the United States? Answer. Now while they continue to be members, if they are appointed to any office and wish to accept the appointment, they must give up their seats in Congress, nor can they be chosen members again while they hold that office. Supposing Congress creates any new office, that is, appoint some public duty to be done, and allow the person who does it a compensation, or shall increase the pay before allowed for doing the duties of any office that is already established. May any member of the Congress which did this be appointed to such office? Answer: no, not till the whole time for which he is chosen a member shall have expired. Question: how do Congress proceed in making the laws? Members usually propose that some other members, called a committee, shall consider whether it will be proper to make a law for some particular matter, which he explains. If a majority of the members think it will be best to consider of the matter, they order certain members to do so. These members or committees meet together and, having considered the proposal, determine whether it is proper to advise the members of the House to make a law respecting it. If they think it is they put down in writing the words of such a law as it will be best to make. The writing is called a bill. They then return to the House, either in writing or by words of mouth, declare what they have done, and state the reasons for it. Each such a statement is called a committee's report. The bill is then read twice. Catch that? I'm sorry, I'm stopping in the middle of it. But the bill is then read twice, meaning it has to be read to the entire House of Representatives twice. Not once, twice. Okay? The members who first proposed the matter now further proposes or moves, as it is called, that the bill is considered by all the members. If this is agreed to, the bill is then taken under consideration. Every member has an opportunity to propose such an alteration as he pleases, and every member may give reasons why such a law ought or ought not to be made. If any alterations are made, the bill as altered is written over again and read a third time. Then, after full consideration, it is passed. That is, it is finally agreed to. So basically, the House of Representatives, they make a bill, which is basically a proposed law, meaning it's not a law, but they're wanting to make it a law concerning an issue. Then they have a committee of the Congress of the House from the House of Representatives write it out, the logistics of that bill. Then the committee brings back a report. This is what we come up with as far as a solution to whatever the problem, the law that's being passed is supposed to solve. Then it's to be read twice. Okay? It is to be read twice. The House of Representatives cannot vote on a bill they have not read. It's unconstitutional. Okay? According to the Constitution, they have to read it out loud before the House of Representatives twice before it could even be debated on. And then in the process of debating on it, they make alterations, agree to make alterations to where they will agree to pass it. And then that all those alterations has to be put into the proposed bill. And then that bill with all the new alterations put to it has to be read again. Have to be read to the entire House of Representatives, so the entire House of Representatives know exactly what they're voting into becoming a law. Then once it's passed, it is finally agreed to. Question: is it now a law? Answer: by no means. The bill thus passed by one house is then sent to the other house. There it is again considered, and if the house thinks proper, it is further altered and is then returned to the house where it began. If this house disapproves of the alterations made by the other, it sends the bill back. That house may give up the alterations. But if they will not give them up, then a committee of conference is appointed, that is, certain members are sent from each house to meet together to try to bring the matter into such a form that both houses will agree to it. If they succeed and the House agrees, the bill is then engrossed, that is, copied in a fair hand on parchment and signed by the President and Secretary of State and by the Speaker and Clerk of the House of Representatives. Is it now a law? Answer: not yet. The engrossed bill is then sent to the President of the United States for his approval. If he approves it, he signs and returns it. The bill then is called an act and becomes the law of the land. How if he does not approve it, or what we call veto, which is probably about to tell you. Answer: if he does not approve it, he must return the bill together with his objections in writing to the house in which it began. That house must copy the whole of these objections into their journal, and then consider the bill once more. When they have done this, if 2/3 of the House shall agree to pass the bill, they must send it, together with the President's obligation to it, to the other House. There the bill must in like manner be reconsidered, and if 2/3 of this House also agree to pass it, it becomes law. But in all such cases, the names of all members of each House who voted for and against the bill must be put down in the journals. So, let me finish. Suppose the President of the United States should neglect to sign and return a bill sent to him by Congress. Answer: if he does not sign or return any bill within 10 days after it's sent to him, not counting Sundays, it becomes a law, unless that time Congress shall have ceased to sit. So basically, while Congress is in holding quorum, and the President of the United States I'll just sit on my desk and forgets about it for 10 days, then it becomes a law. Just because he didn't even read it, he didn't open it, he didn't sign it, he didn't say, I don't agree to it. But that's only if Congress is still holding quorum. If Congress ceased to sit, meaning they adjourned, then it doesn't become a law. And then I guess it waits until they meet again. That's my guess. Question: is not this a better way of making the laws of a country than either of those we first considered? Answer: it is hard to conceive how greater care could be taken that no wicked, unjust, oppressive, hasty, or unwise law should pass. There is a full time to consider whatever is proposed, much fair opportunity to oppose, if wrong, and improve it, if imperfect, so many persons and from so wide a space of country must agree in approving it, that it is scarcely possible anything every injurious can be enacted, or at least as it is, that a different form of government would have prevented it. Question: are there not some evils that attend this mode? Answer: nothing of human contrite is wholly free from any deficit or other, and in times of war, when the public danger is great, and it is needful that government should act, not only wisely but rapidly, some disadvantages may be found to arise from so deliberate a method of passing every law, but it is far better to put up with this than to lose the precious blessing of so free and safe a mode of legislation. Question: you have said no laws can be made for the United States but by Congress. May Congress make any laws they please? Answer: no. Their power is limited by the Constitution. That is, they have no power but what the Constitution says they have. They must always be remembered that the state, when they united to form the general government, had full power to govern themselves, that they gave up a part of their powers for the general welfare. Whatever power, therefore, is not given by the Constitution to the general government still belongs either to the state government or to the people of the United States. And I'm going to go ahead and end there. So let me highlight this as it means to mark where I'm at. I know this is kind of much longer video than the last one. I kind of went through a lot more stuff, but hopefully you guys were able to take some things out of what I've said, as far as, not necessarily what I've said, but what I've read through, and kind of now understand how Congress functions a little bit. I hope you have an awesome day, and may God bless you in all that you do and say. And if you hadn't already started reading the Constitution and familiarizing yourself in the Constitution, get started. I love y'all, and I hope you have an awesome day.